Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to the race watch-along for the 2021 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you join me after the race preview, hopefully you've had a good break in between. If this is the first time you've joined us this weekend, then I think you are in with us for an exciting Grand Prix here in Brazil. Of course, it's normally what is called the Brazilian Grand Prix, but because of a new deal struck between the FIA and the circuit and the government, it is now the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And like I said, the grid, I didn't think coming into this weekend the type of grid we've got would be the grid we have. There's cars definitely out of position. Also in the midfield, you've got not exactly say teams with two cars close together. So there's lots of cars, different cars in parts of the grid, of course, that are very important, such as the top 10, and of course at the very front of the field. It's a lot hotter as well for the Grand Prix today. Currently watching Martin Brundle's grid walk, and there's not really that many clouds, if not any, in the sky. So it's going to be a much hotter Grand Prix, much hotter session we've had at any point this weekend, which of course that plays into the hands of Red Bull Racing. Hopefully you guys are doing well ahead of what should be a more exciting Grand Prix than what we got in Mexico City last weekend. And no matter what part of the world you're from, no matter what time it is, day it is, hopefully having the best day you could possibly be having. Now, before we get into talking about what's going to happen possibly in this race, let's just quickly go in indeed to what that starting grid is going to be for this Grand Prix. So Valtteri Bottas, after winning the sprint yesterday, will start on pole position. Max Verstappen starts second. Carlos Sainz third. Perez fourth. Norris fifth. Leclerc sixth. And then, Gasly, Ocon, Vettel and Hamilton complete the top 10. Of course, Hamilton, because he had a gap in his rear wing that was larger than 85 millimeters, he was disqualified from Friday qualifying, even though he started on pole position. So that's why he started the sprint from 20th, came to 5th, but because of his 5-place penalty for a new ICE, he starts in P10. And given that disqualification, I think having the sprint this weekend has actually saved Lewis Hamilton a lot of points in the championship battle. Then you have Ricciardo P11, Alonso P12, and then Giovinazzi, Stroll, Tsunoda, Latifi, Russell. Raikkonen was going to start in 18th, but Raikkonen will now start from the pit lane because Alfa Romeo have fitted a new rear wing, which of course is against Parc Ferme rules. And then it will be, so Schumacher 18th, then Mazepin 19th, and Raikkonen will start from the pit lane / 20th position. Like I said, if I just scroll back down a bit, quite an exciting grid. And plenty of big fights going to happen in this race. Bottas versus Verstappen. Verstappen has to try and make sure he gets ahead of Bottas as soon as possible to avoid Valtteri holding him up, which is what Valtteri is going to do. And then a massive fight in the midfield between Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly, also Perez maybe. And then, of course, we'll watch to see how Daniel Ricciardo comes through in that fight. And, of course, how Lewis Hamilton does. A man who, if things go right for him in regards to what happens up front, if Bottas can hold up Max Verstappen, a man who could very well still win this Grand Prix. Remember, it's 71 laps, and given the pace we saw in the sprint yesterday, I think Lewis Hamilton absolutely can win this Grand Prix if things go right for him. Now, we'll move on to the slideshow pictures as we've got 25 minutes pretty much to go until the formation lap begins. And I'll bring on my co-commentator for today's race, Nib. Firstly, how are you doing, mate? And do you think we are in probably for a better race? I mean, normally we do get better races here in Sao Paulo than we get in Mexico, but starting grid, I think, is definitely, wouldn't you say, more exciting than what we saw in Mexico?
Well, it's certainly got a lot more variability. Obviously, a bit more mixed up with the madness that occurred on Friday. Well, it was actually Saturday morning and then into Sunday morning for me. It was going on at about midday for me. Once they said no, we'll pack up, we'll go home, and then by the time I'd gone to sleep, just after practice this morning. Or yesterday even now, it was still going on. So what a chaotic weekend it's been. And I tell you what, with it being nearly 4 o'clock here, if the race is as bad as it was as the Mexican Grand Prix, I'm going to bed. So hopefully we're in for a much better Grand Prix. But to answer your original question, I'm doing very well, thanks. And it's great to be back on for a second week in a row.
Yep, absolutely, and hopefully this race won't send you to sleep. I don't think it'll be that bad than what we saw in Mexico. I think one thing that we don't need is a safety car on the first lap to reset everything. It needs to be, the race needs to get away, starting, and then just continue to flow. Because normally a safety car on the first lap just destroys the flow of a Grand Prix. And normally a safety car, it tends to improve a race if it happens, midway through the Grand Prix or in the last third of a Grand Prix. Like I said, if it happens at the end of the first lap, it does tend to ruin the flow that the start of the race has going forward for the rest of the Grand Prix. Now, we'll get into the fight, of course, at the front. Valtteri Bottas getting a very important win in the sprint yesterday. Mercedes had to get him onto pole position for today's race because the goal is for Valtteri Bottas to hold up Max Verstappen for as long as he can so that Lewis Hamilton can be given time to get through the midfield and then have the pace to catch Max Verstappen before the end of the Grand Prix. That is the plan, and it seems as though at the moment Valtteri Bottas is doing exactly what Mercedes need him to do, and it is going to plan so far for them. A lot, of course, like we said in Mexico in the build-up to that race, a lot does come down to the start. If Valtteri Bottas does lead this Grand Prix at the end of lap 1, then that does increase Lewis Hamilton's chances of beating Max Verstappen in this race by quite a bit. But if Max Verstappen gets into the lead, then most likely, given the pace we have seen from Red Bull over a race distance and given the much hotter conditions, then I think that probably means that Lewis Hamilton doesn't really have a chance of fighting against Max Verstappen unless of a safety car at the absolute right time. So the start is absolutely critical, and Valtteri Bottas has a very important role to play. Of course, so does Sergio Perez. If Perez can get past Carlos Sainz in good time and then hold Lewis Hamilton up for quite a bit, that will help Max Verstappen a lot, whether Verstappen is behind Bottas or in front of him. But the start of the Grand Prix at the very front of the field is absolutely critical to Lewis Hamilton's championship bid, because with Verstappen finishing second in the sprint, of course, Max has now gained 2 more points and is now leading by 21 points going into this Grand Prix, which gets underway in 20 minutes' time. So if Max does beat Lewis Hamilton this Grand Prix, and especially wins this Grand Prix, it's not over the championship, but it is very nearly, over, and very nearly all in Max Verstappen's grasp. So this Grand Prix is, I'd say, probably the most important Grand Prix we're going to have this season. We don't really know what's going to happen in Qatar or Saudi because we haven't raced at those circuits before, so who knows what's going to happen at those races. We know here what is needed for victory and what is needed to have a good Grand Prix. Mercedes have definitely the quickest car this weekend, and straight line speed, something you do need a lot around here to really succeed, is something they have plenty of. So it's hard to say right now who is looking in a better position. I mean, with both cars, Red Bull, second and fourth, you'd think them, but given how much quicker Mercedes have been this weekend, and given the pace we saw from Lewis Hamilton in the sprint yesterday, hard to say really what's going to happen here. And Nib, for the battle today up front, if Bottas can hold up Max Verstappen for, say, the first stint of the Grand Prix, and Hamilton can get his way through, the 2 Ferraris, Norris, Gasly, Ocon, and maybe Perez within the first, say, 20 laps or so. If Bottas, like I said, if he can hold Max up, do you think Lewis Hamilton has a properly good chance of winning today? Or is it, even if Bottas does maintain position over Verstappen, is it still a bit of an ask for the 7-time champion?
Pretty simply, yes. Of course, Hamilton can win this Grand Prix. I think we saw it the German Grand Prix when he started 14th. and he come back and won. Like the guy can do anything. His drive yesterday was very good. It won't be so difficult getting past Lando Norris because he just likes to let him through like he did yesterday. Oh, what a move. Lando let him through. Lando said afterwards, Lando let him through. But yeah, one thing you did mention, though, that I forgot to mention is that, yes, it is much hotter. It's 20 degrees hotter, the track, than what it was yesterday. I think it was about 35 degrees yesterday, and it's 55. I just saw a tweet by an F1 journalist on Twitter just before, so that's going to be pretty crucial. I don't think anyone knows exactly how that's going to affect things. Of course, Red Bull are usually better in warmer conditions, like we've seen really all season long. But around here, it could be a little bit different because the temperature in the front tyres, Max was even struggling with a little bit on Friday, so we'll see how everything pans out with that. But yeah, very much Hamilton can win this race, and I certainly agree with you. This is make or break for Lewis. You know, if he finishes like in fourth, I don't think that would happen. But like fourth and Verstappen win, you know, that's pretty much GG. And also with Bottas, I mean, I think we saw yesterday, if you get a good start and you're on the inside, things will be pretty comfortable. So that's what Verstappen's got to do today. He's got to get a good start, and also big up Bottas, more pole positions than Hamilton this year. He's the GOAT.
Wait, is that true?
Yeah, Bottas has got 4 pole positions, and Hamilton's got 3, with Verstappen on 9.
That is absolutely mental. I didn't even realise that. That is... Wow. I'm trying to think of the races. Portugal, Bottas had pole. Turkey. And I'm guessing Monza, sprint, and this sprint. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the king of the sprint.
That is crazy. And then Hamilton, I'm trying to think where his 3 poles were. Spain was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I went Barcelona.
Trying to think where else did Hamilton get pole? Yeah, it is something to point out, definitely when we get to the end of the season, just the lack of poles, and not just poles but race wins compared to Red Bull this season. Red
Silverstone.
Oh yes, was it Silverstone? I thought Verstappen had the actual pole because Verstappen won the sprint.
Oh yeah, sure, I forgot about that.
I'm trying to think where else. So yeah, Barcelona, Hungary, that was another one, where Mercedes got the front row, even though it meant nothing in the end because they made an absolutely massive mistake. And the third one, I don't actually remember where that third one is. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, no, Imola. There you go. It was Imola. The second race of the season feels an absolute age ago. But yeah, I did not know that Valtteri Bottas had more poles this year. At least that's something for Bottas to take away from 2021. That is absolutely incredible for him. And yeah, like I said, we'll get into the predictions in a moment, but like I said, the start of the Grand Prix will be the most important part of this Grand Prix for Max Verstappen. If Verstappen gets a poor start like yesterday, where he lost not 1 but 2 positions, then game on. But if he gets to the lead, I think Max Verstappen has got this. And like you said, Neb, if Max was to win this race and Lewis was to finish even third, then the gap would go up to what, 30 points most likely, at least. And then even though there's 3 races to go, and you never know, Max could have a race where he has an engine blow up or something like that, or a gearbox goes wrong. It's looking unlikely at that point. So yeah, we'll see what happens in this Grand Prix. We'll just quickly get on to the midfield. Carlos Sainz yesterday, very, very good. Another strong performance from the Spaniard. Lando Norris as well was pretty good in the sprint. Charles Leclerc, not so good, but Ferrari, to me, look as though they are the strongest midfield team by a tenth or two overall. compared to McLaren. So Ferrari should be the number one midfield team, but we know it's not as simple as that. Lando Norris is still very quick. The McLaren's still very quick down the straights, and even we saw earlier in my race preview in Sector 3, the McLaren was, I think, a tenth or tenth and a half quicker through Sector 3. So the McLaren's definitely, if they can get, say, Norris within a second of Carlos Sainz or a Ferrari in general, then McLaren can absolutely still get a top 5 finish. But with Daniel Ricciardo down in P11 after a poor start to the sprint and a nothing sprint race, he didn't really do anything. The sprint race couldn't find his way past Vettel or Ocon despite being in clearly quicker cars. Ricciardo's out of position and not really, I think at the moment, in a position to help his team outscore Ferrari in this race. I mean, you never know what could happen. Ferrari could have a retirement. If a safety car comes at the right time, maybe McLaren can still beat Ferrari with both cars, or, split the Ferraris, say with Daniel Ricciardo in there. But if it goes through the race without a safety car, then I think Daniel Ricciardo has given himself probably too much to do in comparison to where Sainz and Leclerc and his teammate is on the grid. But I think the main midfield fight today will be Sainz, Norris, Leclerc. Maybe Gasly. I think Gasly's most likely going to be looking, in his mirrors at what's behind him today, because the Alpines are not looking that bad. And like I said in my race preview, Daniel Ricciardo, I do expect in the race today to be a bit better than he was in the sprint. But it's going to be a very interesting battle. I think definitely more interesting this weekend than it was last weekend. Last weekend, going into the race, even though I thought it'd be an interesting battle to a certain extent, because we had, grid penalties and cars far back on the grid, we didn't have as much of an interesting fight brewing, I think, in that Grand Prix with what we had on the starting grid in terms of positions than what we have here. So we should have, say, a couple good midfield fights. The Sainz, Leclerc, Norris fight, and then the Gasly, Ocon, Vettel, Ricciardo, and Alonso fight for the rest of the points-paying positions. Nib, for the midfield, like I said, should be the two Ferraris and Norris really fighting for the first 3 positions in the midfield. For Daniel Ricciardo, though, like I said, didn't have a good sprint and hasn't looked awfully quick this weekend. Can he get up to the Ferraris, or is, like I said, is his main fight Ocon, Vettel, Gasly really in this race?
I think if he can finish behind the two Ferraris and Norris in terms of position, I think that would be good. That would be a good finish. He's got to finish ahead of those the rest of the midfield, because at this stage of the season, that's just not quite acceptable for the battle that they're in with Ferrari. So yeah, it has to be getting up behind those Ferraris and behind his teammate, really, for Ricciardo. He's been good at starts this year and last year as well. So who knows? He might actually get a good start, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think with Ricciardo, he's definitely going to be, racing cars today. I think we'll probably see him going for a couple of his classic dive bombs down the inside at turn 1, probably on Vettel, which I think could be a good battle, him and Vettel, here in Brazil. I think, was it 2018? I think Ricciardo did a very nice overtake on Sebastian Vettel in one of his final races for Red Bull. A race that, if Ricciardo had didn't have a grid penalty, which that season he might have had about 1 million grid penalties, he could have won that race given how quick Red Bull were that day. But yeah, Ricciardo, he'll get in there somewhere, and I think he'll definitely finish in the top 10. Like I said in my race preview, 8th or 9th, I think, is most likely where it will be. Right, so 10 minutes to go. I'll start off with the predictions for this Grand Prix. So my top 5 is Max Verstappen to win. I think Verstappen will get Bottas into turn 1, and then Verstappen will I don't think he'll dominantly win, but I think he'll just have enough speed in the end to win. Hamilton will finish in second, Bottas will finish third, Perez fourth, and Lando Norris in P5. By the way, in regards to the fight at the front, to be honest, if you listen to our race watch along last weekend, I think you'll know my and Nib's opinions on Valtteri Bottas in a race situation. Not exactly the greatest racer of all time, put it that way. And I just think because Verstappen is so much better than Bottas, somehow, some way, Max Verstappen is going to win the race today. So yeah, I think Max will get Bottas off the line, and like Nib said, the inside line is a good line to have into turn one, as long as you do get a good initial launch off the grid. And hopefully for Verstappen, from his point of view, doesn't have any gear sync issues off of the line. Yeah, so that's what my prediction is. Nib, what would you go for a top five?
Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Sainz, I think so that's probably what's going to happen. I've actually been ready. I've been ready today, Chaz. Are you proud of me?
Well, normally you just guess, don't you? And I think it seems sometimes you just deliberately go for a prediction that's different from mine just to spice it up. But yeah, thankfully you were ready this time because most of the time you just guess, don't you?
I'm like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah. So what, we got 8 or 9 minutes to go now until the formation lap gets underway. So guys, right now in the live chat, give us your predictions for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Who do you think will win the race, finish in second, third, fourth, and fifth? Give us your top 5 prediction, and I'll make sure to read out as many as I can before the formation lap gets underway. Of course, in a few minutes' time, we'll go through again the starting grid for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Just want to say, though, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I will be, if there is anything to react to this time, I think there will be this time, to be honest, given how this Grand Prix is normally in Formula 1. I will be live as soon as possible after the race finishes with a race reaction stream to react with you guys to what's happened in this Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that content coming up later on, and also for this. And as well, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel every way you can. It really does help the channel grow. And as well, make sure to tune into the race reaction later, because I will give an update as to what the schedule is on the channel from next weekend's race until the final race in Abu Dhabi, because it will be a bit different from the schedule of this weekend and the one last weekend in Mexico. And I'll also update you guys as to the schedule in terms of the winter break and the start of the winter break as well, because I'm going to start working on content, I think, for the winter break very, very soon. But let's see some predictions in the chat if I can. And Elaine says Verstappen, Hamilton, Gasly is what going for the top 3. Hello to Bravin, by the way. Hello to everyone in the chat, by the way. Great to see you all here. KG says Verstappen, Perez, Gasly. Richard Reed says Lewis, Max, Bottas, Perez. Waltz Chen says Max, Bottas, Gasly. Lots of people going for Gasly on the podium here, which of course he did finish second in 2019 in an absolute classic Grand Prix. It's such a shame.
Best team radio either as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great team radio from Gasly after the end of the race there. The only downside was that, normally that season we were doing watch-alongs for every race, and that weekend I didn't have any internet, so I couldn't stream that weekend. If we had streamed that weekend, I think me and you would have just shot into outer space, really. Especially with the last with the last 2 laps, it was absolutely mental. Even when watching the race, I was shouting and screaming. So who knows what it would have been like on stream. But hopefully we get a similar Grand Prix. It's similar-ish weather conditions. It's not really a similar grid. Hamilton, of course, was starting third that day. We had Max up on pole, and I think a Ferrari second. I think Gasly did actually start the race in 6th or 7th, where he's starting today. So who knows? Maybe If there's a bit craziness, maybe he'll come through, but it would take a lot for that to happen. Prosecutor Darth says Verstappen, in their opinion, to win. Bravo Moz says Max Bottas Lewis is his prediction for the race. Prosecutor says for the rest of their predictions, Hamilton second, Perez third, Bottas fourth, and Carlos Sainz in fifth place. And we'll just wait to see if there's any more predictions coming in chat. I just want to ask though, Nib, I mean, we thought it would be closer here than it was in Mexico. Mexico, Red Bull absolutely destroyed Mercedes. But are you surprised how quick Mercedes have been, not just in the first and third sector, but even in sector 2? Mercedes are clearly quicker than Red Bull. It's a bit of a surprise that they've turned it around that quickly in the space of a week.
I'm not as surprised. I always thought it was going to be a bit closer here for sure. But there's big differences that it's not as this circuit's not as bumpy as it is in Mexico, especially like in the last and the middle sector. Mexico, it is quite a bit bumpy, especially on the curbs. So they've been able to run their system a little bit more effectively this weekend. So they've been able to have more downforce on the car. So I think that's also played into why they've been a little bit quicker. But yeah, I don't think anyone expected to be was it 3 or 4 tenths in the end in quali. I don't think the AWS graphic was actually right for once.
It was, yeah.
Mercedes have been mega this weekend, and I don't think we all quite expected that. And I think it's bad news as well. We saw last year at Abu Dhabi, they were quite quick, Red Bull there, but I think with the long straights and everything, Mercedes have to be favourites for Abu Dhabi as well. When we get to Abu Dhabi, of course.
Yeah, and who knows? The championship might be over by then because we have no idea what's going to happen in Qatar or Saudi. By the way, the last thing I'll read out from the chat is a question from KG. Nib, piss break, yes or no? Will there be a piss break? I know no plenty of times this season you've had one.
No piss break today.
Yeah. Thankfully. Not just because I want you to be here for the whole race, but also, when was it? Silverstone or maybe the race before that, someone asked in chat if you had an actual problem because you was going for a piss so much, and I had to make sure to tell them that no, you don't have anything wrong with you.
Just because I just drink a lot of water.
I do too, and that's it's just a usual occurrence. Anyway, we have about a couple minutes to go until the formation lap gets underway, so I'll now get the graphics ready. So let me get up the starting grid and just adjust the picture on screen. There you go. And I'll just get the ticker up there, and I'll put the text on screen in just a moment. But guys, with a couple minutes to go until the formation lap, here is your starting grid for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas on pole, Max Verstappen second, Carlos Sainz third, Sergio Perez fourth, Norris fifth, Charles Leclerc sixth, Pierre Gasly seventh, Esteban Ocon eighth, Sebastian Vettel ninth, Lewis Hamilton 10th, Daniel Ricciardo 11th, Fernando Alonso 12th, Antonio Giovinazzi 13th, Stroll 14th, Tsunoda 15th, and Latifi, Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin, and Kimi Räikkönen round out the field. As is a very large crowd, of course, for this Grand Prix. Always a classic Grand Prix this is on the calendar. And hopefully another classic around Interlagos awaits us. And this is actually the first time we've come to Interlagos with the championship still undecided since 2016. As they're just showing now some of the main players on the grid. Of course, we'll see in a moment what the starting tyres are. I expect it to be mediums for pretty much everybody.
Everyone except for Yuki Tsunoda.
Right. And I'll just get your lap counter ready. There you go on the screen. It is a 71 lap race. And of course, I'll get that going in just a moment as now the tyre warmers just about coming off in just a moment. Just showing Valtteri Bottas on the front of the grid. And yep, as Nib was saying, everybody is on the mediums. The only person who is not is Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda, not the hard, he's on the soft compound. So we'll watch out for him on the start. He may gain a few positions. Hopefully he doesn't have another incident on the first lap like he had in Mexico, even though there was not that much he could do really in that incident. So pretty much here for our mediums, and it should be a one-stop race, medium to hard strategy in this Grand Prix, and with people pitting between lap 25 and 35 as the formation lap begins right now. And Bottas and Verstappen come off the starting grid. And Verstappen just does a bit of a practice start. Interesting to note, if you watched the full sprint race yesterday, you would have seen that Valtteri Bottas really shot off into the distance from second to really practice his getaway. And then, of course, when they got away for real, Valtteri Bottas got the lead. So we'll see what Max can do. As, yeah, they're just showing on screen. They're actually showing it to be a two-stop race, which, like I said, I don't think that'll be the case. Normally, the teams do tend to make the tyres last longer than we expect. The hotter conditions may affect that, but I still think the medium tyre will go at least 25 laps into this Grand Prix, as they're now showing Lewis Hamilton on the formation lap. And actually, just remembered, I need to put lap instead of race on the screen. There you go.
I must say, Chaz, I do think that we're going to actually have a two-stop today. I think the heat, being 20 degrees hotter on track, I think we are going to have a cheeky two-stopper.
Maybe. We'll see what happens. I think the last Grand Prix here, before the safety car started, I think it was a two-stop and it was similar conditions, so we'll see what happens. And of course, any safety cars that do come out may assist in certain strategies here. As Valtteri Bottas now coming to his grid slot in just a few moments' time. Max Verstappen, the last man who won this Grand Prix in 2019. Of course, the podium, it was Max winning from Gasly. And then Carlos Sainz in third after Lewis Hamilton got a penalty for destroying Alex Albon's hopes and dreams. As Kimi Räikkönen still in his garage, as of course he will start from the exit of the pit lane. As the front half of the field are just lining up now. And Lewis Hamilton, he will line up on the left-hand side of the grid, so he won't get... I mean, he'll have the inside line, but he won't have, I say, maybe as much grip as the other side, but the difference isn't that big. It's not like Turkey, for example, where the difference is massive. As Carlos Sainz, right behind Valtteri Bottas on the grid, they're just showing him there, and now they show Max Verstappen. Can Verstappen get into the lead and take another massive step towards the World Championship? We're about to find out. As the lights come on, it's 4 lights and it's 5 lights in Brazil. And lights out, and where we go straight away, very quick there. As Max Verstappen is on the inside of Valtteri Bottas down to turn 1. And there's a McLaren has gone massively wide. I think it's Lando Norris.
Norris has got a puncture.
And yeah, Norris has a puncture. And Verstappen pushed Bottas wide. And now that's put Sergio Perez all over the back of him. And now Charles Leclerc is alongside Carlos Sainz. Hopefully no contact between the two Ferraris this time. And Leclerc gets it as the Ferraris go off track and they rejoin on the exit. And there's an Aston Martin, or it's an Alpha Tauri. No, it is an Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel as Hamilton round the outside of Gasly. What a move that is by Lewis Hamilton. As Perez is second. Sergio Perez is second. That is vital for Red Bull. Another crucial start. Just like in Mexico, they had an amazing start, and that pretty much won them the Grand Prix, and they've had another great one here. So it's Verstappen from Perez, Bottas, and then Charles Leclerc is in 4th place, with Sainz in 5th, Sebastian Vettel. What a start by him, up to P6. Lewis Hamilton is P7, and Norris is down to 20th. Like you said, Nib, he has a flat rear tyre. We'll see in a moment as we begin lap 2. We'll see in a moment why that is. as Lewis Hamilton passes Sebastian Vettel. So Hamilton already up to 6th place in this Grand Prix. So Hamilton up to 6th. And then you've got Gasly in P8. And then Ocon 9th. And Ricciardo in 10th. There's Hamilton already all over the back of Carlos Sainz. And then Alonso is in P11. Lance Stroll's had another good start up to P12. Giovinazzi is 13th. Tsunoda has not really benefited from the soft compound tyre there. He has only gained a position because of Lando Norris, who's only just, by the way, come into the pit. So unless a safety car comes out, Lando Norris is basically out of this Grand Prix in terms of real contention for any points, as they're going to put... Are they going to put a new front wing on it? No, they are going to put a set of hard compound tyres on. So yeah, Norris is now at the back. So Schumacher is in 15th place. Mazepin is 16th. And then Russell 17th. Latifi 18th. Raikkonen 19th. And 20th is Lando Norris is already 37 seconds off the lead as Max Verstappen does another new fastest lap. And now on to lap 3. And Perez only 1.2 seconds behind as Lewis Hamilton already gets past Carlos Sainz, and Hamilton doing exactly what he did in the sprint and dispatching of the midfield runners very, very quickly. And he will probably, at the end of this lap, be overtaking Charles Leclerc for 4th place. And then he will be where at least he needs to be, as replay of the start and contact with Leclerc, I think, with Norris Nib.
Sainz, contact with Carlos Sainz.
And he got a great start there, didn't he? Right round the outside. What a start from Norris. And that is such a shame, because that was the best start, one of the best starts I've ever seen around this circuit. And here's a replay from Sainz is on board. And bit of wheel spin, and I don't think Sainz could have done anything differently then. Yeah, he says, nothing I could do to avoid Lando. He got squeezed. Not quite sure, what he could have done. And to be honest, I'm not sure what Lando could have done, because he doesn't really want to be far over to the right there. As just looking now, I mean, Norris does come across, but at some point he does have to. I say that's probably a racing incident. And just showing there, Verstappen, he got past and then pushed Bottas wide a bit onto the grass, and that's what allowed Perez. Yeah, great run through turn 3. And let's just see the...
Bottas went wide at turn 4.
Yeah, he went wide at turn 4. Perez got him, and then the two Ferraris went off track. Gasly was actually in 6th place, and then Sebastian Vettel undercut him through turn 4 as Gasly went off as well. There's a replay of Lewis Hamilton's start. But Nib, for Red Bull, that couldn't have been any better. A 1-2 already.
Yeah, but Hamilton, whilst all these replays have gone on, has passed Leclerc for 4th already. So Hamilton is flying, and it's going to be an almighty effort to stop Hamilton winning today, as we're getting a replay of him overtaking Carlos Sainz at the moment, which was very comfortable. And then I assume there's going to be a replay.
Oh dear. We haven't seen that. Yuki Tsunoda, that's whilst we've been watching the replays, has thrown it down the inside of turn 1 at Lance Stroll and has completely shredded his front wing. So he is right now at the back. I mean, he had to a certain extent, be aggressive today, as Bottas has let Lewis Hamilton through, which of course he had to do, because Hamilton needs the clean air. As Hamilton does a new fastest lap of 1:14.2, as Perez is not lapping that much slower than Verstappen, only a 10th or 2 here or there. So Perez not looking bad pace-wise, but now Lewis Hamilton, who's only 3.5 seconds behind Perez, can now go hunting after the Red Bulls, which he has to do. Let me just do some of the order here. Hamilton 3rd, Bottas 4th, and yes, Tsunoda into the pits now. Then you got Leclerc 5th, Sainz in 6th, and then Vettel, Gasly, Ocon, Ricciardo. Alonso is 11th, Stroll 12th, Giovinazzi 13th, and now you've got Mazepin up in 14th place for Haas F1, Schumacher 15th, and then Latifi from Raikkonen, then Russell, then Tsunoda and Norris. No retirements at the moment, but 2 cars very much out of play at the moment. As we're just seeing there, Kimi Raikkonen fighting away with Williamses, as we're now on lap number 6, and Verstappen only pulled about a tenth or two away as Hamilton, another new fastest lap of 1:14.1, 3 tenths quicker, I think, than he went on the previous lap. As this is, we're looking at Gasly, who is within a second of Sebastian Vettel. The AlphaTauri definitely this weekend has been quicker than the Aston Martin, so no real surprise that Gasly is already over the back of Vettel. Great start, though, by Vettel. And here is a replay, I believe, of Valtteri Bottas letting Lewis Hamilton go. Pulls to the inside, lets Hamilton have the racing line so he doesn't lose any lap time. And Hamilton was 4 tenths of a second quicker on the last lap, as Hamilton says, thank you, Valtteri. 4 tenths of a second quicker on the previous lap. We'll see if he can keep that up. Safety car. So I'm going to guess that's for the debris from Yuki Tsunoda's car. Must be. And you have a whole front wing sat on the exit of the first corner. That's going to be great news for Norris and Tsunoda. And also, they need a safety car for that, don't they, Nib? There's debris absolutely everywhere. And if anyone goes wheel to wheel through that corner, they'll get a puncture for sure. So we have a safety car on now lap 7 out of 71. The order remains as it is. And that is even better news for Lewis Hamilton. And I'm just going to quickly press a button on my skybox to make sure I don't go into standby mode. But I'm just going to quickly ask you this, Nib. Even better now for Lewis Hamilton, isn't it, with a safety car and with that straight line speed he has?
Yeah, I'm gonna do what Horner said after Mexico. Red Bull have been Tsunoda'd. They've done brilliantly. They built up that nice little gap, although Hamilton had caught it and brought it down by about 1.5 seconds already. Since he got past Bottas. But yeah, I was going to say the next time that I was able to butt in that they had to bring out a virtual safety car or something, because you couldn't go side by side through turn 1. There was only one line that you could take. So absolutely the right decision to bring out the safety car in the end to get rid of that debris, because obviously with Tsunoda and Norris so far back, there's not really enough good of a gap to get it. To get the debris there off at the inside of turn 1.
Yeah. As safety car through the pit lane will be the what the safety car is going to do. I don't think you'll see anyone pit who's in a good position or a decent position right now, because there's not really much gap between anyone on the grid. So they're going to lose a lot of time, as Hamilton's saying, tell Valtteri to follow me, just keep going, let's get these guys. Fighting talk, and that's what that's the mindset he needs to have. He has to win this race today. If he doesn't win this race today, then I think I said in the build-up to this race, if Max wins today, then all Max has to do is finish second in the final 3 races, and he'll be world champion. So has to make sure he beats Verstappen today as they begin lap 8 beyond the safety car. Shouldn't be too long, as it looks as though the debris in front wing is pretty much gone now. It shouldn't be too long before we get going again, maybe another lap or two, as here's a replay. So Verstappen on the first lap, very similar to him and Hamilton 2019, but Bottas went into the grass that time, and then Perez, that set him up brilliantly to get a run through turn 3, and then get in the slipstream, pull to the outside, and Bottas on the dirtier side of the grid obviously runs wide, and Perez, such a smart driver, just pulls underneath him and gets up to second place. So nice driving there from Sergio Perez, and then you can see in the background Lando Norris, the contact, and his puncture was absolutely instant. Normally you see him only suffer a puncture after, say, a few seconds later. It was literally instant, as Verstappen was saying on the radio, yeah, let's go. As soon as that happened, as Russell, by the way, he did actually pit Russell during the safety car. Russell has, though, stayed in 18th because, of course, Tsunoda and Norris were so far back. And the field, as you see on the left-hand side of your screen right now, is as it was. And if you're wondering if you just joined, why Tsunoda and Norris at the back, Norris suffered a puncture on the first lap after contact with Carlos Sainz, and Yuki Tsunoda made a dumb dive bomb, really, down the inside at turn 1 on Lance Stroll and took his front wing off. So that's why Tsunoda is in 19th. Are they going to go to the pit lane again? Yes, they will. By the looks of it, though, like I said, I think the debris is pretty much gone. So I think they should be racing at the end of lap 9. And, well, even though Red Bull have got a 1-2, I mean, if the race had just continued from here on, you'd be saying, yeah, Red Bull in a great position. But this puts Hamilton now right on the back of the Red Bulls. A reminder, Hamilton has been the fastest guy this weekend, and he is in the fastest car. So this is exactly what Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes need if they are going to win this Grand Prix. And also, Valtteri Bottas has had decent speed this weekend, so you never know, he could play a factor here. And I wouldn't be surprised, wouldn't you, Nib, if Hamilton has a go at Perez down that straight with the extra straight line speed he has?
Well, I've already tweeted this out, but the only way that Hamilton doesn't win this race today is if he makes a ridiculous mistake from himself, or if there's contact with the Red Bulls. I think it's pretty simple. He's absolutely the nailed-on favourite for this Grand Prix, even though he's in P3. They've got at least a 20km/h advantage down the straight than Red Bull. So, yeah, I think it's absolutely, as the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, it's got to be Hamilton here that's the favourite.
Yeah. We'll see how he gets on in the dirty air behind the Red Bulls, but I'd have to agree with you there. I think the top speed advantage down the straights is so enormous that even if he doesn't maintain or isn't that close behind in the middle sector, he'll still gain a couple tenths, and that's before they even get to the DRS line, just in the slipstream. As remember, no overtaking until the start-finish line, so Max Verstappen, the one thing he cannot do is now release it on the exit of Jinsao, because if he does, then Lewis Hamilton will probably be in the lead by the time they get to, or won't be in the lead yet, because of course can't pass to the start-finish line, but he'll get such a good momentum that you never know, he could probably get past at least one of the Red Bulls. Down into turn 1 is Verstappen still backing up, as they've already crossed the point where the DRS activation point is, even though there's no DRS for the moment. And Verstappen, when will he let go of it? And he goes right now. And Perez will get a good slipstream behind Max Verstappen. Can he keep Hamilton at bay? Hamilton, as big lock-up by Charles Leclerc, as Leclerc's going to go right round the outside of Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas, he should be able to maintain that as Norris and Russell are making moves on this restart of the Grand Prix, and Bottas is actually closer to the back of Hamilton than Hamilton is to Perez, as Leclerc still trying for a move on Bottas, and Ricciardo there was trying for a move as well, as Raikkonen has climbed a position up to 16th, and Latifi actually has got back past, and Leclerc still having a go at Bottas, but I don't think we're able to keep up with him anymore. As Norris is up to 18th now, Raikkonen gets back ahead of Latifi for P16. And Norris now passes Latifi. Norris should fight his way through the next few cars pretty comfortably, as we see Ricciardo there, who is in a Alpine sandwich, and Tsunoda, great move there round the outside, getting past, I think, both Williamses, who are now at the very back. And the Haas up in 14th and 15th position, as Lewis Hamilton, now in the beginning of lap 11, right in the slipstream of Sergio Perez, but not close enough yet to go for a move. And he will have to wait, as Stroll Tsunoda is under investigation. That probably will be a penalty for Yuki Tsunoda. Hamilton, if he keeps like this behind Perez until the DRS is activated, then Hamilton will definitely be having a go at the back of Sergio Perez as they now come through turn 4. As Lance Stroll has passed Fernando Alonso, and Norris passes Raikkonen. Plenty of overtaking going on through the order. And yes, Stroll up to 11th. Raikkonen has actually got back past Norris. Schumacher has dropped to the back. I don't know if that's because of a pit stop or not. But Raikkonen up to 15th, Norris 16th, and then Tsunoda, Latifi, and Russell. And Schumacher has a broken front wing. I'll be interested
He's awfully close with his teammate.
It might be, yes, because he was right behind his teammate. So there might have been a bit of contact down the pit straight. We'll have to have a look in a moment, as hopefully he doesn't discard any debris and that front wing doesn't come adrift and stay on the track. And oh, there you go. Debris on the track, and that's probably going to be a virtual safety car or even a safety car. As we're now on lap 12, and here is a replay, and no, it's Raikkonen alongside him. And oh, yeah, that's unlucky, isn't it? I think he's got a bit of oversteer, and then Raikkonen's, I don't know who really to blame in that racing incident by the looks of it to me. And a virtual safety car indeed to clear up that debris, as Hamilton right behind Perez at the moment. And no one really to blame for that incident, wouldn't you say, Nib? I mean, they're just both kind of oversteered into each other.
That was just really weird.
Yeah.
After the bump of wheels, like, Raikkonen went way across to the left, but I actually really don't know how to read that incident. That was just very odd and a bit clumsy, really.
Yeah, as Haas just throw the front wing or the nose cone off and get rid of the rest of the nose, and Schumacher will be at the very back. Hopefully hasn't done any more damage to his floor. So the front floor.
There's going to be damage to that, that's for sure.
And we should, as Hamilton there thought he was going to pile into the back of Perez. Hamilton letting Perez know when this race gets going again, he will be all over the back of him as they now begin lap 13. And we'll see when the virtual safety car period will be ending. Probably sometime on this lap, because there wasn't much debris on the track and it should have been cleared away, honestly, by now. And Hamilton, look at him, all over the back of Perez. And if they get going now, then... And Hamilton, was he that close when the virtual safety car was actually enacted? I don't know, because he looks as though he's almost sending Perez a message and trying to put the frighteners on him. And we'll see when the virtual safety car ends. If it ends during the middle sector, that's probably best for Red Bull. But if it ends on the straight, then Hamilton should have Perez easily into one of the braking zones. As they're now just coming through turn 9, which is about where the debris is or was. And can't see any debris at the moment. No, there's no debris there anymore. Maybe there's more debris that's being cleared up from later on in the lap. But we'll see when this virtual safety car ends. As Gasly also all over the back of Sebastian Vettel, someone he needs to get rid of as soon as possible, because Gasly has been much quicker this weekend than Sebastian Vettel. As Norris there, they're just showing, as we're now on lap 14, Norris is in 15th place rather. 14th is actually Nikita Mazepin. Don't quite know how that's possible, but I mean, in Mexico, I think he was up in 13th or 14th place for a few laps, and then he dropped, of course, to the back. As still, with a virtual safety car, don't quite know why. And there you go, virtual safety car ending. When will it end? Hamilton, exit turn 4. Can he get right back up to the back of Perez? He's backing off, I think, for the Delta, and now gets going again. I think Hamilton may have lost a slight bit more time there than he was behind Perez, but he is still about a second behind. And the race back underway as Russell has passed Yuki Tsunoda. So Tsunoda's been sleeping a bit out there. So Russell up to 17th. Latifi has actually pitted as the Williams driver in 19th place. Remember, with Russell, he did pit for a set of hard compound tyres. So Russell might be in a decent position later on. As we begin now lap 15, Verstappen has pulled a 1.5 second gap as Hamilton now is right in the slipstream of Sergio Perez down to turn 1, and he's only 6 or 7 tenths per second behind. And once that DRS is activated, it's only a matter of time, I feel, before Lewis Hamilton is overtaking Sergio Perez for second place, because Perez, his pace is decent compared to Verstappen, but Hamilton's pace, as we've seen all weekend, is on quite another level. As Hamilton now into the middle sector is about 6 tenths of a second, maybe 7 tenths of a second at most behind the Red Bull. And Bottas also keeping about a second behind Hamilton, which is good news for Mercedes, of course. The Constructors' Championship, massive fight there. Mercedes only 2 points clear of Red Bull in the Constructors. Right now, it's looking great for Red Bull, but we have long way to go, and Mercedes do have the quicker car. As Hamilton on the exit of Jinsao, time penalty, by the way, for Yuki Tsunoda of 10 seconds for an unnecessary collision. Hamilton now onto the pit straight, about 6 tenths of a second behind Perez, but he doesn't have DRS yet, even though look how much he's gaining down the straight, even without DRS. When he gets DRS, that is going to be game over down to turn 1. As now on lap 16, Max Verstappen leads by 1.8 seconds. And Hamilton gets right on the slipstream now behind Perez down to turn 4. Still not close enough though, as Norris is up to 14th now past Nikita Mazepin. And honestly, Norris is obviously pit stop on the first lap. Might not actually affect him too much, because as long as he gets in clean air on fresher tyres, might actually help him later on. As Raikkonen now up to 15th. Not anymore. Mazepin is back up to 15th. Perez saying, get Max, give me DRS. He knows that Lewis Hamilton, once he gets that DRS, is going to get past him. And to be honest, I mean, yeah, if Max gave Perez DRS, that'd be great, but that'd also put Max closer to Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. Nothing really I think Red Bull can do here. They're just simply too slow. As Hamilton now gets the DRS opened, but I don't think he's close enough down to turn 1. No, not quite. He was a couple tenths away, really, from having a go. But now he will then begin pressuring Perez as through turn 3. He's only half a second behind. Now opens the DRS. Will Perez have to defend? No, there's not quite enough straight line speed on that Mercedes to be all over the back of him there. But nib it is, isn't it? A matter of time before Hamilton is past Perez and doing this, what he's doing now, to Max Verstappen, pressuring him.
It is a matter of time indeed, and as you can see, Bottas has really closed up to the back of Hamilton here as well, whilst Hamilton has been stuck slightly behind Perez. But this is good for Red Bull at the moment. It's probably not going to be at the end of this lap, start the next lap, when Hamilton might get past, but spending time in the dirty air this close, damaging those tyres, is only going to help Verstappen, at least in this stint. But here we go, Chaz. I think that Hamilton might be close enough now.
Yep, he might just be Perez doing what Sainz did in the sprint, pulling to the inside and cutting the pit entry line, because he knows that Hamilton very quick down the straights, and here we go, Hamilton down into turn 1, Perez defends to the inside, Hamilton right round the outside. Wasn't even competitive really, Hamilton much quicker, and obviously not just the car being much quicker, but he is much quicker right now. Now lap 18, and Lewis Hamilton up to second as Perez comes back at Hamilton and goes back past him. Does he run wide though? No, he doesn't. So Perez right back past him. That's great for Red Bull. And if we can keep doing that to hold up Lewis Hamilton, because now look, he's lost 3 seconds now to Verstappen. If we can keep doing that, that would be absolutely fantastic. And I'm assuming, Nib, the reason he got back past is because Hamilton had a bit of a compromised run through turn 2 and 3.
Yeah, what a move by both of them. That was fantastic racing. When these two are on track, it is magic, but I think Hamilton's even closer than what he was on the previous lap at this moment. So I think once again, it might be time for Perez, but that was fantastic racing by the both of them. Wow, mega stuff.
It was, and like you said, I think Perez, a good fighting there from Perez, but I think his hold on second place won't continue much longer as Perez defends to the inside yet again. Hamilton right round the outside, and this time will not compromise his line through turn 2 and 3 because he is on the racing line and now easily ahead of Sergio Perez. And the next man up front, 3.5 seconds away, is Max Verstappen, and Hamilton will now hunt him down, which he has to do if he is going to win the championship. As Raikkonen, by the way, is making moves. Tsunoda is up to 15th. Raikkonen now up to P16, and then the next man to dispatch of Mazepin will be Russell in the Williams. So Hamilton up to second, and so far the race going exactly how it needed to go if he is going to win. But so far in this lap, Max Verstappen has actually been 2 or 3 tenths of a second quicker, because it was 3.6 after Hamilton passed Perez, and now it's almost 4 seconds. Verstappen is quick out front. The next thing to look out for is Valtteri Bottas against Sergio Perez, as Bottas now will get DRS and it is within a second of Perez, as Perez does not have DRS on Lewis Hamilton. Will Bottas send it to turn 1? Nope, he will not. But through turn 2 and 3, he might get a decent run to give Perez something to think about down into turn 4. But you can clearly see through the first 20 laps of this race that Mercedes are much quicker than Red Bull. But Red Bull still, with Max Verstappen, have track position. As there was a move in the points there, lower down. Don't know who it was.
Ricciardo got past Vettel.
I think it might have been Ocon. We'll have to see in a moment.
No, trust me, I saw it on the screen. It was Ricciardo got past Sebastian Vettel.
He must have passed Ocon then very quickly that I haven't seen, as they just showed a replay of Perez repassing Hamilton, and then they'll probably show another replay of Hamilton then passing Sergio Perez, and the crowd really loved that in Brazil. And so this is Sebastian Vettel behind Daniel Ricciardo, and Vettel has got back past Daniel Ricciardo by the looks of it, according to the screen there. And yes, he has. So by the looks of it, I think Ricciardo went deep, didn't he, as he's got back past Ricciardo, but I think Ricciardo went a bit deep into turn 2, and that's what allowed Vettel to get past, as Ricciardo, is back up to 8th. Alonso has passed Lance Stroll for 11th place. So Alpine now 10th and 11th. And Ricciardo now sets his sights on Pierre Gasly. Here you go. And Vettel nowhere near in a position to defend. Ricciardo easily getting the move done there, as we are now on lap 21. So 50 laps to go. And Hamilton has cut the gap down to Verstappen, but not by that much. Only a couple tenths, really, to Verstappen. Verstappen keeping it to 3.5, 3.7. As
it's stayed the same at the moment.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they're lapping 8 tenths of a second quicker than anyone else on track.
Yeah, that's a very, very good speed. As Bottas, now on lap 22, has fallen over a second behind Sergio Perez, so he will not get that DRS assistance from the back of Sergio Perez. And Bottas about 1.1 seconds behind. Hamilton is now starting to gain. So Giovinazzi there, giving Stroll many things to think about into turn 1. I don't think Giovinazzi was going for the move properly there that Stroll thought he was, but Stroll all over the place trying to defend his position. I wonder if Stroll has any damage to his car after that contact with Tsunoda to the bargeboard area or something like that, because after passing Alonso, I think before the virtual safety car, or before the safety car even, he looks as though he's going backwards now, as he is in P12. 13th is Giovinazzi, and 14th is Lando Norris in the McLaren, who is now all over the back, almost, of that pair scrapping away, as Hamilton was a couple tenths quicker, I think, on that lap compared to Verstappen. Gap down to 3.5 seconds between Verstappen and Hamilton. Perez is 6.7 off the lead, and Bottas about 1.5 seconds behind Perez and 8 seconds off the leader. Here is a view from Carlos Sainz's Ferrari of him behind Charles Leclerc, and he is 2 seconds pretty much behind as Lance Stroll comes into the pits on lap 23 for a set, surely, of hard compound tyres, and yes, it will be that, as Giovinazzi is up to 12th, and then Norris 13th, Tsunoda 14th, Raikkonen 15th, and then Russell is 16th with Mazepin in 17th and Latifi 18th. And we'll see. I was actually going to make a point about Norris on the hard compound tyre. We'll see how he does now against Giovinazzi and how quickly he gets past. But it looks to me like the hard compound tyre is working very well at the moment, because Latifi, for example, was behind Mazepin on track by like 2 or 3 seconds. Latifi has pitted, Mazepin has not, and Latifi has already cut it down from 20 odd seconds to, I think, 5.5. So, and Latifi pitted after the safety car. So those hard tyres are working pretty well in this heat, as Max pulled out a couple tenths of a second on that lap over Lewis Hamilton. And it's going to be one of those races where Max and Lewis are pretty close on lap time for the entire Grand Prix, as Norris not really close enough at the moment. Be thinking about a move on Antonio Giovinazzi. He's actually over a second behind Giovinazzi at the moment.
Well, I'll give you a little stat, Chaz, thanks to the good old Luke Smith on Twitter. Hamilton on the last lap, a 1:14.775. Verstappen on the last lap, a 1:14.774.
Oh.
That's literally how close they are.
Yeah, that is very, of course, close. As Max saying on radio, starting to slide a bit more now. He might be starting to slide a bit more, but on this lap, he's been quicker, I think, compared to Lewis Hamilton by about a tenth or so. So, he's very... Max Verstappen right now, I think, is showing the reason why he's leading the championship. Of course, Red Bull have had the best car this season, but Max has had to drive at an almost perfect level this season to be in the position he's in. And right now, he's having to be absolutely bang on lap time wise to keep the gap as it is. Because if he wasn't, Hamilton would probably already be all over the back of him. But he's lapping so quickly and giving it, so much energy behind the wheel that he is providing us with great entertainment, of course. And he's giving Red Bull, I think, an even better chance of victory here than they would have with a, say, driver not as good as Hamilton. Saying on team radio that the rears are starting to move quite a lot now, as Sergio Perez, after his nice battle with Lewis Hamilton, has actually... He's started to maintain the gap to Bottas, actually pulling out a bit over Bottas to about 1.7, 1.8 seconds, and even not lapping that much slower than Hamilton and Verstappen ahead. I mean, he's still lapping slower, of course, but it's not an absolutely massive difference. As now we are looking at Daniel Ricciardo on lap 26, and he, as Gasly... Now pits. Ricciardo was just starting to close up to Pierre Gasly, but Gasly decides to come into the pits. Let's see what happens here for Ricciardo. I've just seen that I forgot to put Sebastian Vettel down the order, which of course is great. And yet Gasly goes onto the hard compound tyre, so I'll update where he will come out. Ocon is 9th, Alonso 10th, and then you've got Giovinazzi P12, P11, sorry, and then Norris 12th, and then Tsunoda 13th, Raikkonen 14th, and Gasly will come out in between Kimi Raikkonen and George Russell in 15th position. So Gasly has some decent clean air. Should be able to pass Kimi Raikkonen quite easily, to be honest. But I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Ricciardo came into the pits very, very soon, as Lewis Hamilton now comes into the pits on lap 27 out of 71. And Hamilton puts on a set of, let's see what it is. I don't know what it is. They didn't show it. So Perez.
Probably going to be the hard.
Yeah, you'd think it'll be the hard. As
yeah, it was the hard tire.
So Perez is up to second now. Bottas is up to third. And then you've got Leclerc in fourth place. Daniel Ricciardo is up to fifth. Hamilton will come out in sixth place ahead of Sebastian Vettel. So now we'll see what Verstappen is going to do. Surely he will pit on this lap. So you have Hamilton sixth, Vettel seventh, and Carlos Sainz has maintained position over Pierre Gasly, but only by 1.1 seconds. But interestingly, Nib, Carlos Sainz there committing to a two-stop because he's on another set of medium tyres, as Hamilton already gaining half a second, not even that, a second on this lap, and Verstappen has got to pit, and here he comes into the pits. So we'll see whether Verstappen can maintain the lead here. Has to get the pit stop right, and yes, he does. 2.4 seconds. We'll see if that's enough. And Hamilton now, he's in the slipstream of Daniel Ricciardo coming down the pit straight. And Max, as Leclerc is pitted, Max will maintain the lead, but it will be, I think, a smaller gap than it was. And Hamilton will now pass Daniel Ricciardo with DRS down the straight between turn 3 and 4. So Hamilton has closed the gap to about 1.5 seconds. And Hamilton, yes, is indeed, like you said, Nib, he's on the hard compound tyre. Let me just update quickly some things. So we're on lap 28. Perez is leading from Bottas second. They both haven't pitted. Verstappen is now third, with Hamilton fourth. Ricciardo is fifth. Ricciardo is not pitted yet. And then you've got Vettel sixth. And then Ocon, Alonso in seventh and eighth. Charles Leclerc is ninth. Lando Norris is now actually up to P10. And Norris has passed Giovinazzi for position. That's why he's up to P10 now. Carlos Sainz 12th. Sainz, of course, is pitted. Pierre Gasly is up to 13th. Ahead of Tsunoda. He's passed Tsunoda and Raikkonen very quickly. As Perez now in the pits. As Lewis Hamilton does the fastest lap of the race. So Perez now will exit the pit lane and come out in, I think, fifth place as Sebastian Vettel. As Hamilton is a new fastest lap of 1:13.3. Perez comes out, I think, in P5 on lap 29.
Yeah, and Chaz, look how much the undercut was worth. When Hamilton pitted, the gap was 4 seconds. And now it's 1.5 seconds. So that undercut is absolutely monumental here today at Sao Paulo.
It is, as Lando Norris tries to get revenge on Carlos Sainz for the first lap. But I think Carlos Sainz actually was passing him there. So Sainz is now up to 9th place. So Vettel is pitted. So it's Leclerc now back up to 8th, sorry. And then you got Sainz in 9th. Norris in P10. And then Gasly in 11th. Giovinazzi 12th. Tsunoda 13th. Russell 14th, as we're now on lap 30 out of 71. Valtteri Bottas staying out. I'm going to guess he's going to try and block Verstappen. If he stays out, say, another few laps, I'm going to guess that's what he's going to do. He did try, or Mercedes did try that in Holland, and it worked for a couple laps, but Verstappen had so much more grip in the end that he ended up still getting past. As Gasly is about to pass Lando Norris into turn 1, and Pierre Gasly gets the move done. So Gasly up to P10. Let me just complete the rest of the order. So Russell 14th, Vettel 15th, Stroll 16th, as Giovinazzi now pits. So Tsunoda is 12th, Russell 13th, Vettel 14th, and we'll complete the rest of the order in a moment. Here is a replay of Stroll, and I think
safety car.
The virtual safety car, and that's great for Valtteri Bottas, and that's why, because Lance Stroll, and I'm gonna guess that's from the contact with Yuki Tsunoda, something has flown off his side pod, and yeah, that's what they're collecting. So Bottas now in a great position, and he has to pit because he might. Not sure he will. I don't think he's that far enough ahead of Verstappen, but he should come out ahead of Perez for sure. As Bottas now pits on lap 31, we'll see where he comes out. And yeah, Verstappen and Hamilton go through, but Bottas should, as the virtual safety car is now ending, Bottas will come out in third place. So he's got past Perez, and he should be now closer to, as green flag now, should now be closer to Verstappen and Hamilton than he was previously. As Ricciardo and Ocon now pit. Lots of people moving up and down the order, so let me just try and get it right. You've got Fernando Alonso now up in 5th place. Alonso has not pitted yet. Charles Leclerc is in P6. Daniel Ricciardo P7. Carlos Sainz is up to 7th. You've got Gasly in 8th place now. Reminder though, Carlos Sainz is definitely on a 2-stop because he's gone on to another set of the mediums. Honestly, to me, it looks as though we are, like you said, Nib, I think we are probably on a 2-stop race here, as Ricciardo has come out only just behind Pierre Gasly, so that's worked out well for Ricciardo on fresher set of tyres. So I think Ricciardo, and he's only come out a couple seconds behind Carlos Sainz, so that has worked out really well for Daniel Ricciardo. He's on much fresher tyres, and he's only a few seconds behind and a few seconds closer to those drivers as we're now on lap 32. And Lewis Hamilton is now just 1 second, even 9/10 of a second behind Max Verstappen on the run down to turn 4. Let me just complete the rest of the order though. Got Tsunoda in P11. Russell in P12. Ocon is now 13th. Vettel is in 14th. I think Ocon has jumped Vettel there through the virtual safety car phase. And then you've got Stroll in 15th as Ocon passes Russell. And Ricciardo passes Gasly instantly. So that is great news for Daniel Ricciardo here.
Come on.
I know Gasly's got back past. As Giovinazzi, by the way, is down to 16th place after his pit stop. Kimi Räikkönen is 18th, and then Mazepin 19th, Schumacher 20th. Schumacher has made 2 pit stops. Mazepin hasn't even pitted yet, even though he's in 19th place. Alonso also has not pitted. So far as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on now lap 33.71. But Valtteri Bottas goes even quicker. Bottas, remember, a few laps fresher tyres, and he's closer now to the front 2 than he was before because he pitted during that virtual safety car period, as Charles Leclerc overtakes Fernando Alonso. Alonso, of course, on much older tyres at this point. And Hamilton now very close to Verstappen. Verstappen doing his best in the middle sector to pull the gap. But you wonder how long it'll be until Hamilton gets the DRS activated. And here's a replay of Leclerc passing Alonso. And do you think it's a matter of time here, Nib, before Hamilton gets a DRS? Or do you think Max can do the job in the middle sector to keep him at bay?
Well, that's where they've been gaining this whole entire race, is in the middle sector. It's going to have to take a mighty middle sector from Hamilton to get the DRS, but obviously once he gets the DRSs, he had a quite large snap of oversteer going through Junzhou, and I don't know. I think Verstappen can do a good enough job at the moment. We haven't seen any signs showing that Verstappen is actually super struggling. It's just in the straights, which Mercedes are gaining the time back.
Indeed, because Max did pull out 2 or 3 tenths in that middle sector that time, and the gap is now up to 1.1 seconds, as now we are looking at Daniel Ricciardo in 9th place, only half a second behind Pierre Gasly. And like I said, he is closer now than he was before Gasly pitted. and he's on fresher tyres. And remember, Carlos Sainz ahead has to pit again, and Ricciardo has fresher tyres than him, as Vettel has passed Russell down in 13th place there. And yeah, the main battle we're looking at the moment, as Verstappen continues to pull away from Hamilton by about 0.2 of a second by the looks of it in the middle sector. The main battle we're looking at here is Ricciardo versus Gasly, and Ricciardo looking in a much better position now in this race, as Bottas has another purple sector, a purple sector 1 that time around. Bottas is only 6.5 seconds at most off the lead of the Grand Prix, as we are now, guys, at half distance in this Grand Prix. Just a reminder, I will be live after the race for a race reaction stream for this Sao Paulo Grand Prix as Fernando Alonso comes into the pits, so don't forget to subscribe for that. And also don't forget to subscribe for more content coming for the rest of this Formula 1 season. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or just go to my channel page, and whilst you're there, hit the notifications bell. And also smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. So yeah, Alonso has pitted at the midway point of the Grand Prix and should be able to now go to the end of the race, even though his pit stop was a bit slow. I say a bit, only about 1.5 seconds, but that does sometimes make the difference in these races. So Carlos Sainz is up to P6, Gasly up to P7, Ricciardo up to 8th, and then you've got Norris 9th, Tsunoda 10th, Ocon in 11th, Vettel 12th, and then Russell 13th, and Alonso comes out in P14. And yeah, he had a 4-second stop, about 1.5 seconds, like I said, slower than it needed to be. And Hamilton, he's not able to get within a second. That's what's the most important thing here. He has to get the DRS. If he gets the DRS, then no matter what Max does in that middle sector, Lewis will be able to then have DRS pretty much every lap on Max Verstappen. But he cannot get close enough in this middle sector to stay ahead, or to get ahead rather. He's not losing that much time in the middle sector, but it is enough to keep him without DRS here. As on the exit of the final corner, Sao loses the rear end slightly, and he is 1.4 seconds behind, as Valtteri Bottas is slowly but surely gaining time on Hamilton behind him, as they begin now lap 37 out of 71. And Hamilton trying his best, but Verstappen is just about doing enough at this moment in time. And just going to update that Alonso is in 13th place, and even though Hamilton can't get close enough at the moment to pass Verstappen on track, if there is another pit stop, Nib, Hamilton and Mercedes are in a great place here because they're an undercut away from the win.
Exactly. That was going to be one of the points I make next, as we've got Esteban Ocon in the slipstream, certainly with DRS on Yuki Tsunoda. He's going to go around the outside of Yuki Tsunoda into turn 1, easy as you like, and now Esteban Ocon demotes Yuki Tsunoda into P11 and promotes himself up into P10, as we've got Vettel getting past was Mazepin, or was it Schumacher? Actually couldn't quite see who it was, but Vettel lapping a Haas. That's for certain at the moment. But yes, we're talking about Hamilton, weren't we? Yes, yeah. The undercut. Certainly, the undercut's going to be really crucial here in this Grand Prix. And as you can see now, even through the first sector, it's at 1.4. So Verstappen's certainly doing a good job, because there was at times where it was coming down to a second. And then it was going out to 1.4, then it'd come down to about 1 second again. So Verstappen through that middle sector, he's gaining at least 0.3 a lap. just in the middle sector alone. And I think the hotter conditions are certainly helping that today. Because obviously it's going to punish the tyres. Who's we got coming into the pit lanes? We've got Lando Norris coming into the pits. And what tyre is he going to put on? He's going to put on the hard compound tyre. And it was a little bit of a slow stop there. McLaren 3.8, although it didn't look anywhere near as slow as what Alonso's was when it was a 4-second pit stop before. And he will come out in P17 behind Kimi Raikkonen.
He will indeed. Norris, though, is still in a decent position because he was in 9th place before that pit stop, and he should now have the pace to maybe nick a point at the end. But the Ferraris, who of course they're in big competition with at the moment, as Sebastian Vettel trying through, was it turn 11 here and turn 10 to get past Tsunoda, and he's clearly much quicker, but as a note, it is not, by the way, lap 98 out of 71. It is lap 39 out of 71, and Sebastian Vettel all over the back of Tsunoda. Needs to watch his mirrors, though, because Esteban Ocon is very close behind. I think Ocon might... Will he go for the move? No, he's just too far behind. 2/10 more. It was 2/10 closer. I think he probably would have gone for the overtake there. But Sebastian... It's actually Fernando Alonso, not Esteban Ocon. The Vettel up to P10. Alonso up to P11. And yeah, Alonso, if he was a slight bit closer, I think may have probably thought about a dive down the inside at turn 1. But honestly, considering there's only 31 laps to go, as I have to say, we are absolutely racing through this Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton or Verstappen pitted now, because there's only 31 laps to go, and the hard tyre, I'm assuming that's what they'll put on, can easily do that. So I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Hamilton was to come in this lap or the next lap or any, around this time, because the hard tyre, I mean, it can go probably, if you nurse it, probably go to the end from here, but I don't think Hamilton is going to do that. As Fernando Alonso now, round the outside of Sebastian Vettel into turn 1, and Fernando Alonso, who is on much fresher tyres, I think the most freshest of tyres compared to the rest of the midfield, is up to 10th place, which of course is vital for Alpine in their fight for 5th place in the Constructors, as Yuki Tsunoda, as Max Verstappen is going to cover that off. Just as I said that, he's going to cover that off, but he's pitting behind a Williams. Flashbacks to Robert Kubica, or as you like to call him, Giga Kubica. Verstappen comes from his pit stop 2.7 seconds. And Williams have done the same thing again. But will it hold up Max Verstappen? I don't know. It's not as bad as what Kubica did. But that might be, that just slight little bit of time, that might be crucial. And Latifi has got to let Max go now. And he does. Not as bad as what Kubica did, but Hamilton, we'll see what he does, because you never know. Mercedes could decide to go a bit longer on this set of tyres to have much fresher tyres for the end. We'll see what they decide to do. But Hamilton is now leading from Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, and yeah, Tsunoda has pitted, and you've now got Lance Stroll up to P12, and Hamilton has stayed out. So Hamilton, has he stayed out, or is he coming into the pits? The Mercedes are out in the pits, and it's Bottas who's coming in. Bottas pitting before Hamilton, even though he went longer on his first set of tyres. So lap 42 now, and Bottas comes into the pits, and Hamilton will now go longer on his set of tyres. So Perez is up to 2nd. Verstappen is 3rd, and Bottas comes out in P4. As Stroll is 12th, Russell 13th, and then you got Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, and Norris, and then Tsunoda has come out in P17. as Bottas actually comes out behind Charles Leclerc there. But he should be able to pass Leclerc pretty easily when he gets the chance. But we were just talking about it, actually, weren't we, with the undercut? And I think Red Bull did the right thing there, pitting him early to cover off what would have been an open goal for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes.
Absolutely. You called it absolutely perfectly. As we've got a replay here of Lance Stroll getting past a Williams into turn one, I can only assume. Around the outside, is he going to go EIO? Yes, he does. Around the outside of George Russell into turn one. It's a nice little move by Lance. But yeah, you called that absolutely spot on, as we'd assume, as Perez is now into the pits, and he's going to go on to what I'd assume is the hard compounded tyres. Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, as Bottas now gets himself past Leclerc into turn one. And Verstappen, interestingly, only went a tenth quicker than what was previously the fastest lap of Bottas's. And Perez is going to come out ahead of Carlos Sainz and ahead of that lapped Haas car. He's actually pretty close behind Charles Leclerc. So 4 seconds between Bottas and Perez now. And yeah, I was just seeing a little bit on Twitter through the team radio that Hamilton wants the medium tyre. So let's see how this plays out. But that ain't no medium tyre.
As I think Red Bull there was just telling Max to look after his tyres. And no, they've not put the medium tyres on Hamilton's car, but he has gone, 3-4 laps longer on that set of tyres. Verstappen will retake the lead, and Hamilton should come out in second position as Valtteri Bottas does the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And let me just put the extra 4 there. There you go, lap 44. I think what Mercedes were doing there, maybe they would have decided to go a couple laps longer, but I think the reason they pitted Bottas first is to allow for Hamilton to just go that lap or two longer to get this type of advantage now, fresher tyres on Verstappen. And look, he hasn't lost that much time, has he? He's only lost a second and a half, and Verstappen pitted 3 or 4 laps before, and we saw how much the undercut worked in the first stint. So that's not actually worked out that badly at all for Lewis Hamilton.
I would disagree a little bit, but because those hard tyres were so much fresher than the mediums previously, so that's obviously why the undercut was worth more previously, because the medium tyres has gone, 25 laps?
Yeah.
Was it? Whereas the hards had only gone 15, 16 laps, so that's why the undercut wasn't as powerful, but still 1.5 seconds is pretty powerful.
And Bottas there just saying, I think we threw away an easy 1-2. I don't really know what he's talking about, to be honest.
I think Bottas wanted them to continue on.
Okay, to keep out on track. It's all in hindsight, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, to be honest. As Lewis Hamilton has gained a lot of time on this lap. He's took a second out of Max Verstappen and cut it from 2.7, the gap between him and Verstappen, down to 1.7, 1.8. And you can see his main rival ahead. And Hamilton, with 26 laps to go, has got to pass Max Verstappen if he wants to win his 8th World Championship. If he does not win this Grand Prix, then it's not totally over, but it's looking as though Verstappen is pretty much there if he gets this win. Crucial, these last 25 laps, as we're now on lap 46 out of 71. Hamilton, new fastest lap of 1:12.1, and cuts the gap down to 1.2 seconds. Raikkonen, by the way, is up to P12, as F1 is now doing some second pit stops. Norris is 13th, Stroll 14th, and then Russell, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda. There you go. And the top 10 is as it is on the screen. You've got Verstappen leading from Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly, Ricciardo, Ocon, and Alonso. No other fights in the top 10 except for this. The main course. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton with 25 laps to go, giving it everything to win the Sao Paulo Grand Prix as Hamilton has took out, I think, another few tenths on this lap. And last lap he was 8.5 tenths quicker than Max Verstappen. And if Hamilton gets within a second and gets that DRS open, then I think without a doubt you're going to see Max and Lewis going wheel to wheel here in Sao Paulo. As we'll see if if Lewis gets the DRS open. We can't see right now. I'm assuming yes he should do. Yeah, he does. Lewis now is within a second and has the DRS and has just done another fastest lap. As we're now on lap 47 of 111.9. And now here we go. Hamilton versus Verstappen. And Verstappen going to have to try everything to keep Lewis behind and throw everything at Lewis to keep him behind. Because Lewis is simply the class of the field this weekend. But we've seen Max Verstappen been able to keep quick drivers behind before, as into now turn 8, turn 9. Lewis losing a bit of time here in the dirty air. Gap goes up to 7, almost 8 tenths of a second. And on the exit of turn 10, it loses a couple tenths. But now through Jun Sao. Let's see how close he is. And does he gain anything? He gained a bit of time. And yeah, he's gaining a lot now in the slipstream. And now opens the DRS. Can he go for a move here on Max Verstappen? Run down to turn 1. Will Verstappen defend to the inside? No, Max covers it off. And Lewis, I think smartly, positions his car then to the outside of turn 1 to get a better run through turn 1 and 2. And now, on the run down to turn 4, Max Verstappen pulls to the inside. Can Lewis Hamilton go round the outside to win the Grand Prix? Verstappen forces his way down the outside and they both go off the track. And Verstappen keeps ahead. We'll have to see a replay to see if there was any wrongdoing there. But Verstappen doing what he usually does. He will never let anyone pass him around the outside. And he made sure to push Hamilton off there. And another round surely will commence in a moment between these two. And let's see a replay of this. Verstappen and Hamilton. And Hamilton round the outside. And that's a bit naughty from Max, isn't it, Nib? He just dove it down the inside and didn't really bother with the apex there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I just saw the replay now. My stream just went behind a little bit. But yeah, Verstappen certainly opened up the steering wheel, pushed him wide.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not surprised he did that. That's a typical Max Verstappen move, I have to say. I had the feeling that he was not going to let him through or, let him have an outside line there. And I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will be complaining. There you go. Noted. Verstappen and Hamilton. Mercedes will probably want that investigation to go a bit further. But, I think we're going to see another replay of it now. That is a naughty thing, honestly, I think, by Max. He didn't really... It's not like he turned into the corner and... they just both ran wide because of, there was nothing else that they could do. He, like Nib said, opened the steering up by the looks of it. It'd be nice if we saw an onboard shot from the Red Bull, to see Max's steering wheel, but it just looked as though he opened up the steering and let his car really run wide through turn 4, which is not really, in keeping with the rules, as Hamilton is now only 9 tenths of a second behind. He's closed the gap by a couple of tenths. It did fall to 1.1, 1.2 seconds. But Hamilton now is starting to gain back that time, and the DRS is now back wide open. We're on lap 50 out of 71. As just to update you, Lando Norris is up to P12, Raikkonen 13th, Lance Stroll is out of the race. I think he might have some damage there to his side pod after that contact earlier. That might be why he is out. So Giovinazzi is up to 15th. And then as Esteban Ocon has passed Ricciardo, he's in the pits. Right, there you go. I was a bit worried there. So Giovinazzi up to 15th. And then you got Tsunoda, Latifi, and then Mazepin and Schumacher. So Stroll, your only retirement in 20th place. Esteban Ocon is up to 8th. Alonso up to 9th. Will be interesting to see what happens in that midfield fight as Lewis Hamilton now on lap 51 closes the gap down to 0.4 of a second on now lap 51 out of 71. And let's see if Lewis Hamilton will have yet another go against Max Verstappen. And he will get close to turn 4, but not close enough as Ricciardo. Pretty sure Ricciardo is an issue. Wouldn't you say, Nib? Because he's been in the pits for a long time.
Yeah, Ted's speaking right now, but I don't have the volume on, so...
Yeah, he's got a problem. He's lost about 35, 40 seconds.
Yeah, Ricciardo's retired.
Oh, that is very bad news for him. Not just him, but the team. Of course, they're in a mass. And there you go. He's in his garage and he is out of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. That is such a big shame. Not just for himself, but McLaren. As now Raikkonen is up to P12. We're now on lap 52 out of 71. Hamilton does not have DRS, I think, on that particular lap. Now on lap 52 out of 71. So yeah, you got Ocon up to 8th now, Alonso 9th, Vettel 10th, and then Norris, Raikkonen, Russell, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, Latifi, and then Mazepin, Schumacher. So Ricciardo and Stroll are your only retirements of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix so far. So in the battle for 5th in the Constructors, they're currently scoring the same amount of points. I say that as Gasly now comes into the pits as the FIA are on the radio to Red Bull. Be interesting to hear what they're talking about, but of course I don't have the sound on. As let's see what happens with Gasly here as Ocon now goes up to P7. Alonso's up to 8th, and Gasly, I think, will come out in 9th or 10th place. He's currently going through the pit exit now. I don't know where he is in relation to Sebastian Vettel, but I think he comes out in P9. So Gasly should be able to, as Alonso passes Ocon, I think Ocon has let him through there. As Hamilton, right back on the back of Max Verstappen, now on lap 53 at 71, got very close into the braking zone of turn 1. And Hamilton now, DRS back wide open. And race control says no investigation necessary between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, just quickly, Jonathan Wheatley was speaking to Michael Massey saying, Michael, that is all about letting them race. That is all about letting them race. And then Massey responded, thank you for your input.
As Charles Leclerc, by the way, has dropped behind Carlos Sainz, and he will, I think, come out in 6th place because he has just come into the pits for a new set of hard compound tyres. As I think Ferrari have got P5 and P6 pretty much on lock in this Grand Prix, which would be a great result for them. 18 points. And their pace actually is not that bad in comparison to the front. I mean, they're slower, clearly, but they're not losing, a second a lap or anything like that. So not bad from Ferrari, not bad at all. As Hamilton yet again has DRS on Max Verstappen, but it's not close enough to go for a move into turn number 1. And the traffic now having to be negotiated. The next car will be Mick Schumacher, who is last of all the cars that are still running. As Kimi Raikkonen has just exited the pits. He pitted from 12th and has come out in 12th place. So that's pretty good for Raikkonen, considering he started from the pit lane. And you never know what what could happen later on. He could end up maybe nicking a point if something mental happens later on, as Carlos Sainz now comes into the pits and he will come out in 6th place. Will Carlos Sainz, as Charles Leclerc re-inherits P5. And Lewis, he's about a second behind Max, but I don't think he'll have DRS on this occasion. And we've seen this before, Nib, haven't we, where one driver, in this situation, they have their go, don't get the move done, and then end up, not being able to really have a chance again. And there's still a long way to go. Another 16 laps. Hamilton's still quick, still right behind him, but I'm just getting the feeling that might have been the chance for Lewis Hamilton. Or do you think Hamilton will still have another chance like he did?
I think Hamilton will still have another chance, but obviously, as the tyres go on, they get older, I think that the advantage in the middle sector will become a little bit greater for Red Bull, as I'm sure Toto is slamming the desk in anger at Michael Massey. Of course, he's been quite angry at the FIA, would be an understatement so far this weekend, as of course everyone thought that Max Verstappen turned into the Hulk all of a sudden. But yeah, it's we saw that at Bahrain. Obviously, very different circumstances at Bahrain because there wasn't as many laps left. But we saw at Bahrain, Verstappen had his chance, and there wasn't another one. Perhaps it could be like that, but we've still got so much time. And Verstappen earlier on in the stint was saying, "I don't know if I can go to the end if we continue on like this." This was before the attempted overtake, before Max did send Lewis to Uruguay. But yeah, let's see what happens. There's certainly still lots of time left.
Yeah, another 15 laps now. So now on lap 56. The next car to be lapped is Lando Norris, who is in 11th position. And here's another replay of the lap 48 clash between Hamilton and Verstappen. And put it this way, there'll be a lot of salt online after this race finishes. I mean, there is after every race anyway, even if no racing happens whatsoever. But if you're a Hamilton fan and you're aggrieved at that, then I totally see why. Because if I was in Hamilton's position, I would be a bit, miffed at that. Because Verstappen definitely, I think, pushed Hamilton wide there. But because Verstappen, I think what maybe saves Verstappen's bacon there is that Max also went off. So that might have saved Verstappen there from a possible penalty. I think if Max had stayed on the track, then I think he probably would have ended up with a penalty there of 5 seconds. As they're now on lap 57, they've both lapped Lando Norris, who is now up to 10th Lando Norris because Sebastian Vettel has come into the pits for a fresh set of tyres. And we'll see where Vettel comes out in relation to Norris. I mean, he will be P11, but we'll see how far behind he is. As Hamilton looks a bit closer now as they begin the middle sector of this lap. As they're just showing on-track battles. You've got Alonso, Ocon and Gasly. Like I was saying, the battle between AlphaTauri and Alpine, very important right now. Both Ocon and Gasly are within a second of Alonso. Alpine, though, they need to work as a team because they are level on points with AlphaTauri in 5th place. And currently, AlphaTauri are heading for 2 points and Alpine are heading for 10. They need to work as a team, Alpine, to keep Gasly behind them. As Hamilton has DRS this time on Max Verstappen on the run down to turn 1. And Max makes a bit of a defensive move there to the inside. And Hamilton looks as though he's now preparing himself to have another go at the back of Max Verstappen as they now enter the straight between turn 3 and 4. Verstappen weaving. Hamilton now, will he go right around the outside? No, he will try the switch back through the exit of the corner, but because of the dirty air effect, that will not work. Max Verstappen doing everything he can, using every trick in the book, put it that way, to keep Lewis Hamilton at bay. And just looking, because I did see right before Hamilton had another go, that Gasly got very close to the back of Esteban Ocon and wasn't able to make a move. So Gasly is still within half a second of Ocon, and like I said, has to get past in a vital move for the constructors, as Hamilton should have DRS on the next lap as they now enter the main straight, and Hamilton does indeed have DRS. And will Max Verstappen have to defend again into turn 1? Yes, he does. And I think Hamilton even closer on this occasion. And Hamilton, he'll get a better run through turn 2. And here we go. Through turn 3, Max Verstappen is going to have to pull off a miracle to keep ahead of Lewis Hamilton here. Hamilton, right round the outside, cuts Verstappen off. And Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Hamilton had to make that move. The crowd go wild. And Lewis Hamilton surely now will be able to win that Grand Prix, or win this Grand Prix. The pace is too much for Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Verstappen did everything he could, but it wasn't enough, as Hamilton has got the move done and should now, shouldn't he, Nib, win this Grand Prix. Brilliant move from Hamilton.
Yeah, well, down the straights with the slipstream, the DRS, they're 28 kilometres faster. And as you perfectly called, got him out of shape into turn 1. And then just too fast down the straight. Cut him off as he should. And just, I think that will be all she wrote, because Mercedes just simply have too much of a straight line speed advantage. And now that middle sector advantage, of course, with now Verstappen going to be in the dirty air, that's going to be, he won't be gaining as much through the middle sector now as what he was when he was in the lead because of the dirty air. There we go. We got around to it eventually, but yeah, great move by Hamilton. Set him up at turn 1 and got it done into turn 4.
Yeah, but Hamilton already has pulled over a second ahead of Verstappen. So Hamilton, as it stands, with the fastest lap point as well, will cut the gap down to 13 points. And it is still absolutely game on at 13 points as opposed to what would it have been if Verstappen had won 26 or something like that. So a massive swing there in the championship. If Lewis Hamilton does win this World Championship, as race control just saying black and white flag for Verstappen for weaving on the straight there, as Gasly now, we switch to that battle between him and the two Alpines. If Hamilton wins the championship, I think this race will be looked at as a key moment, and probably the biggest moment in that, as Gasly now right behind Esteban Ocon, and Ocon, what is he doing? He's not even defending. And Gasly forces his way up the inside. Ocon, though, because Gasly has gone wide, will get a better run through turn 2 and turn 3. And Ocon, can he get the move done or redone on Pierre Gasly? And Gasly forces his way up the inside. And he's back ahead of Esteban Ocon. And Pierre Gasly is up to P8. Very surprised Ocon did not defend into turn 1. Maybe he was gunning on getting a better run through turn 1, 2, and 3 to, get right back past him. But Gasly, having none of it, throwing up the inside twice, and he's getting the move done there. The next man he will surely be overtaking is Fernando Alonso, as Valtteri Bottas, I'm sure he's being told, get after Max Verstappen here, as he's only 9 seconds behind. At the moment, though, Mercedes are scoring 41 points and Red Bull scoring 30, so Mercedes will pull out a gap in the constructors as Alonso defends his 7th place, and Gasly gets a better run now through the exit of turn 1 and through turn 3 now, and I think Gasly will get this move done pretty easily. Alonso defends to the inside, and Pierre Gasly is up to P7. Brilliant from Gasly. And that, if AlphaTauri finish 5th in the constructors, that could be a key moment, as now AlphaTauri and Alpine on the same amount of points scored for this Grand Prix, which would keep them level in the constructors, as opposed to Alpine pulling out a bit of a gap in the lead there, as Hamilton has got the gap out to 2.5 seconds, and Bottas 11.5 off the lead, and Perez 16 off the lead, And, well, I got to say, this has been an absolutely brilliant Grand Prix. Much better than last weekend in Mexico. Great battles all throughout the field, and not just great battles, but very important battles for the World Drivers' Championship, for the Constructors, as well, in terms of who is going to win the Constructors, and also for different positions in the Constructors' Championship as well. As Hamilton there, lapping Fernando Alonso, the next man to be lapped on his cruise to victory will be Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. As Hamilton continues to pull out a lead. Bottas is closing on Verstappen, but it's not enough, I don't think, to get Verstappen by the end, and I think Max will be able to easily defend against Bottas anyway. As Hamilton, if he can get, like I said, get this win and be 13 points behind, that would be definitely doable in terms of clawing back the lead of the championship, of course, when it matters most at the very end of this season, as Hamilton continues to lap these cars, and the next car he'll lap will be Pierre Gasly. And really, no more battles on track at the moment, as Lewis Hamilton laps Gasly right about now, as he now begins lap 64 out of 71. And of course, Nib, the race hasn't finished yet, and plenty could still go wrong for Lewis Hamilton, but 13 points compared to what it could have been, 26. Absolutely game on now, wouldn't you say, in the championship if it does finish this way?
Yeah, and with Mercedes' advantage that they've got, as they're showing the replay of Verstappen weaving, which, very clearly should have gotten the black and white flag for, as he as Verstappen said, "Yeah, perfect. Say hi to the FIA." Oh dearie me. Well, one thing's for sure, it's getting a little bit toxic on Twitter with the with the Verstappen and Hamilton fans and the FIA over the non-penalty. That happened immediately. Toto, the screenshot of Toto pointing at the cameras being used absolutely everywhere at the moment. That's for sure. But yeah, Mercedes too fast this weekend, and I must say, they might as well take an engine penalty every race if the engine's going to be this bloody good.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, if you watched the sprint yesterday, you would have seen the straight line speed advantage compared to even Mercedes-powered cars was incredible. Even though, of course, he was in a much quicker car, still incredible. One thing to keep an eye out on is Sergio Perez gaining a lot of time now on Valtteri Bottas. He's now cut the gap. It was like 4 or 5 seconds. He's now cut the gap down to 2.9. So we'll keep an eye on that, whether Perez can mount a fight. Most likely not, because the Mercedes is too quick in a straight line, and I don't think there's really any car on track that can overtake it unless a mistake is made or there's a massive tyre difference, to be honest. And Hamilton continues round. And, of course, in Qatar and Saudi, who knows what's going to happen there? New circuits. But Hamilton, who shouldn't... I think what the most important thing here is fresher power unit and won't have to take another penalty surely this season. So that will be a big advantage for the final 3 races. And, of course...
Oh, they'd hope not.
Well, yeah, exactly. They'd hope not. If Hamilton was to win the final 3 races and Max Verstappen finished second in all 3, then Lewis Hamilton would win the championship by a couple points. So Hamilton has really, if he's going to win this 8th World Championship, he has, right when he needed to, produced a massive, massive moment as he continues round, really cruising now to victory here in Brazil. Just to let you guys know, I will be live for a race reaction stream as soon as possible after the race watch-along stream finishes, and really after the race finishes here in Brazil. So don't forget to come along to that, and we'll react to, Verstappen versus Hamilton, the midfield fight, whether Verstappen should have had a penalty or whatever you think about that. We'll get into that in the race reaction stream. And again, it will be live, that stream, as soon as the race finishes. Is Hamilton there? Just losing the rear end, I think, on the exit of turn 9. It's showing a replay of that. He ran a bit wider than normal. That's not really a replay worth showing. Yeah, make sure to join me for the race reaction right after this Grand Prix finishes, and we'll go through it all after the race, of course, does finish. With about 4 laps to go, might as well get into it now, Nib. Who would you go for your driver of the day here? Pretty obvious.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of someone else, but it's quite clearly Hamilton.
Yeah, it has to be Lewis Hamilton for me as well. I mean, yeah, the sprint format being this weekend has helped him, but still, to do what he's done and to not let what Verstappen did earlier to him in that battle get to him and still get his head down and get the move done, phenomenal job, you have to say, from Lewis Hamilton. And I think quickly, I'll just ask, what would you rate this race out of 10? It hasn't finished yet, but it pretty much is over. For me, I'd give this I'm going to give this a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. It's been a pretty good Grand Prix, I have to say. What would you give it?
I was gonna go for an 8, so I'm happy. You've gone 7.5, and I've gone 8.
Yeah,
I'll give it an 8. This is a very good Grand Prix, of course. Now, the battle at the front is over, and now we've got nothing to talk about really. This is why we're just talking about this. As what's the closest battle? Perez and Bottas is the closest battle? Oh no, sorry, Giovinazzi and Russell at 2.3 seconds is the closest battle on track. This has reminded me of some commentary days when I used to commentate a league way back when there was nothing going on, and I would literally just waffle off a random load of nonsense, really. But yeah, the Mercedes just being too quick in this second stint. In third stint even. Red Bull had to pit to cover off from the undercut, but Hamilton just way too fast with that little tyre advantage. And as we know, the harder the tyre, the better Mercedes are. The hotter temperatures hasn't really mattered today, it seems. Just quite simply, Mercedes too quick, and especially in a straight line. And what was it, 30 kilometers an hour difference, really? And Hamilton's, where's Valtteri? Geez, that feels like a very condescending good job. I know.
Yeah, it
he
does.
tries to play up all of that positive. Oh, good job, Valtteri. You finished P3. Way, it feels a bit sort of like that. But Bottas has had a good race. Obviously, he's benefited from the virtual safety car. But yeah, Bottas, after the start, where it was a disastrous start, he's in P4 after about 5 laps. He's had a good little race, hasn't he, Bottas?
Yeah, he's not done too bad. His pace has been obviously not as good as the top two, but it's been really what you would expect. I mean, he's catching Max Verstappen at the moment. He's not going to catch him before the end. But yeah, it's what you would hope for from him. And he will still have a very important role to play in the final 3 races. And we'll see, of course, what he can do. As we're now on the penultimate lap of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, as Sergio Perez is going to pit for the fastest lap point. But will Valtteri Bottas pit? Well, no, I don't think Bottas can, because if Bottas was to pit on the end of lap 70, he wouldn't have the laps to do it. So Perez is going to take, surely, the fastest lap point away from Hamilton, which would give Verstappen a 14-point lead over Hamilton. But still, 14 points, that is absolutely possible to be overtaken by Lewis Hamilton in the final 3 races. But the final part of this triple header in Qatar. I feel as though Hamilton has to probably win that one as well to keep this momentum going, because if Verstappen was to win that, then Hamilton would have to be very do or die in Saudi to keep it to go to the final race. So we'll see, of course, what happens in Qatar as the final lap now begins. And Lewis Hamilton, as Bottas continues to close a lot of time on Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton is cruising home for another win here in Brazil. This will be his third win in Brazil. Not been the most successful track for him in the past. I mean, of course, he won the championship here in 2008, but he didn't get his first win here until 2016. Won here in 2018, in, of course, that infamous race where Max Verstappen took out by Esteban Ocon, and then has had to really work so hard for this Grand Prix win today as he now comes through turn 10 and 11, and he shouldn't really encounter the car ahead, which I think is a Haas, as he now exits Junsao, the final real corner here in Brazil. And now onto the pit straight, Lewis Hamilton. He had to win the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and indeed he has, as Lewis Hamilton wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Max Verstappen will finish in second, from Valtteri Bottas third. Sergio Perez, I think, will probably take the fastest lap point in P4, but most importantly, Hamilton wins the Grand Prix. With Charles Leclerc P5, Carlos Sainz will finish in P6, and then it'll be Gasly, Ocon, Alonso, Norris completing the point scorers, and the rest of the order will be Vettel, Raikkonen, Russell, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, Latifi, Mazepin, and Schumacher, with the only retirements being Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll, as indeed Sergio Perez gets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So the gap up front is 14 points between Verstappen and Hamilton in Verstappen's favour, and Mercedes now lead the Constructors' Championship by, I think, 11 or 12 points now, but it is still, of course, very close in that fight. In regards to Driver of the Day votes and what you guys thought of the race, make sure to come along to the race reaction stream, which will be starting as soon as I get it ready. Neb, thank you for coming on, mate, for this race watch along. And yeah, very, very good race. And probably will be, now that Hamilton has won this race and kept the championship alive, there will be definitely a race watch along, another race watch along this season. And if I have you on again, then I think we could be in for a very dramatic end to this title race, don't you think?
Yeah, well, of course, we've got the Qatar Grand Prix on, isn't it?
Yeah.
As Hamilton has stopped. Did Hamilton stop on circuit? He has. Or is he's getting a Brazilian flag. Oh, and then there'll be all the Senna comparisons on Twitter. Yeah, that would be nice. But that's basically he's just holding it on the halo. That's not very good, mate. You got to get it stuck in the airbox. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, of course, we've got Qatar up very shortly. Very shortly indeed. So we're looking forward to that. And, well, I don't think it's going to be a fantastic Grand Prix. But we'll see. Who knows? We had the best race of the season at bloody Russia this year. So, well, that's because it's rained. It's not going to rain in Qatar. So, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for having me on again. Absolutely fantastic to have a good race to be back on for the race watch alongs. And thanks to everyone in the chat for all your comments and support. And yeah, we'll catch you later.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, until the race reaction starting in probably 30 to 40 minutes time, if I was going to estimate it. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.